original stewards of whose lands this podcast is recorded on. In York Region, we recognize we're on the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and that this is the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. In Vancouver, we acknowledge that we are on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, whose presence on these lands continue to this day.
Hey, Housers, it's Michael Braithwaite here from Blue Door, your host of the On the Way Home podcast, brought to you by the good folks at Blue Door, as well as our partners at the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. I thought I'd use that term, Housers. I've heard that dropped recently, used for people who are very interested in housing our most vulnerable. And that definitely is a lot of our listeners that listen to this podcast. Every week we have this podcast to create that awareness and education around what is happening in the world of homelessness, housing, health, accessibility, meaningful employment. And we talk to amazing individuals who are rising to the challenge, being innovative, thinking differently, and pushing forward as we look to put an end to this housing crisis we find ourselves in. And lots happening right now in the world around housing. Right now, the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, as they do, they put on just incredible campaigns. And right now they have a campaign for homelessness and housing prevention benefit. If you go to their website at caeh.ca, check it out. There's lots of info on the benefit. And then they make it really easy. If you want to get involved and sign your name to it, first of all, you get to sign up, and then they'll send an email on your behalf to your local MP in your area using your postal code, as well to your local newspapers as well. It's all done for you, and it's brilliant the way it's done, well written. All you have to do is kind of enter your info. I've done that, and it's been amazing. That I take their info, I put it on social media. They create a great groundswell, and we are of course trying to build as much affordable housing as we can through different methods. One of those methods we're going to talk about today with our amazing guest, but income supports, really that income support level to lift people and prevent people from experiencing poverty, lift them out of it. So important. And we need to attack that on the federal level, kind of like we've done with healthcare, where they've reached agreements with provinces around the federal government given an influx of cash to address health issues, as well with childcare across Canada. We need to do something similar. And this housing benefit is really, really cool and really well thought out. Yes, it will cost, but there's also cost savings on the back end that it brings along with it. And of course, saving millions of lives as well. So check that out at caeh.ca. In York Region, where I'm from right now, it was really great. York Region Council approved their budget and added $13 million from a reserve they had through the pandemic to housing and homelessness and community initiatives, which is so cool and so needed. We got some momentum during the pandemic with dollars that came in from the federal and provincial government. We want to continue on with that. The need has never been higher. And that passed with a unanimous vote at York Region Council. So very, very cool. We've got a small house called Kevin's Place, and it's been awesome for young men experiencing homelessness. It's a small house on a big piece of land, but really it's kind of almost for us to be champions of affordable housing and not do more with that piece of land. It's almost irresponsible, right? So we're working with Habitat for Humanity as our GTA as our builder, Ellis Don Community Builders, who sponsor this podcast and do a lot of great work in creating affordable housing to get this done, to really put up 14 stacked townhomes in its place, to continue to do that work, but also add 9 additional units of affordable housing, rent geared to income affordable housing, so deeply affordable, I should say, in the spot. We're lucky to get a ministerial zoning order, MZO, in Ontario that helps jump the process ahead. and not go through a rigorous zoning process, and saves hundreds of thousands of dollars for Blue Door. Now we're working on raising the funds, about 8.1 million, to do this. We are confident we're going to get this built, and then and showcase it as a property that could do so much as we look to make a dent in our affordable housing crisis. So lots happening in York Region, Blue Door, nationally with CAEH. But let's get to today's guest. We talked about the housing crunch, the housing crisis we are in. We need solutions of all different types, big and small. I'll put quotes around small, or say tiny, because we're going to talk about those tiny solutions today. Today, I want to welcome our guest, Andrew Miller from 9 Mile North, Tiny Homes and Domes. And we're going to hear more about the domes part. I've heard about tiny homes, not so much about domes. My colleague, Emmy Kelly, met him a few weeks back and said, you got to talk to this guy, really innovative, doing some cool stuff. She saw some of his work. So eager to talk with Andrew, who is fast becoming part of the solution in affordable housing. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Andrew, we ask all our guests the same question to begin with. When you think of home, what does home mean to you?
Home. Yes. Well, we've moved a lot growing up, so home is with family, and the building changed often. So and then for a few years I was out in the mountains living out of a tent more than in my apartment. So home means different things to me, but family, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. Great answer. There's no wrong answers, of course, because it's really personal to you. But quite often, we don't hear people talk about the bricks and mortar. They do talk about family, security, safety, that kind of a thing too. No matter what you surround yourself with, whether it be a tent or bricks and mortar building, family is important. Andrew, can you talk to us a little bit about, for those who might not know, your journey into the work that you're doing now? You talked about moving around a bit. How did you land with 9 Mile North and start into this work? If you can walk us along, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, it's a wild path I was on. So starting with adventure tourism and moving west to become a mountain guide and training, heli ski guiding, mountaineering, rock climbing, that sort of thing. And then whitewater rafting in the summer, and kayaking. So then when I had kids, we moved back to Ontario and set up shop here. And so then I had this interesting crisis of shifting gears and changing my whole, there's not much adventure tourism around Barrie, Ontario, Canada. So I did start some businesses. I did start a tourism business, and got into farming by way of, vegetable farming, learning how to grow food with greenhouses. And it evolved into the building. And as my kids were getting older, I have 3 daughters, so I found farming was a pretty hard life. I did that for 4 years professionally, market gardening, selling at farmers markets, and then got the building and the carpentry skills. I was able to make a little bit more every year and skill up, get more tools. So but we're all working my way up there for 15 years, up to building, massive cottages and homes in Muskoka with all the best materials but it was within me, was affordable housing, the goals of, learning the skills on these high end projects. But my passion was affordable housing folks. So even 10 years ago, I built a shipping container home, and then started dabbling in geodesic dome greenhouses, and then turning some into cabins, and the off-grid living on the farm, that sort of thing. And it evolved into tiny homes, and building. My wife and I remortgaged our house to build the first tiny home of our own. That was with the goal of selling it eventually. So we built the shell of it, and then I ended up selling it, getting a customer, and then we finished it. So I was able to quit I was subcontracting all over Muskoka, quit there, and now we're building tiny homes full time. And so it's been a few years, and lots of great learning, mainly off-grid tiny homes, solar and wind powered batteries, then we teamed up with community builders here. Met Brandon. We were going to hire. We started looking to hire them to work on some of our projects. They train adults with employment barriers and how to get into the trades. So after meeting with Brandon and the team and Barry, Brandon ended up offering Kate and I jobs with community builders. So we sort of merged the tiny home business with community builders working. They were doing, second suites and building lots of great affordable housing, renovating homes. And then Brandon brought us on with our tiny home experience. So we're expanding into this great new realm of scaling up in the way of how many projects we can take on, because there's a beautiful big team at Community Builders. We're plugging right in, and then so I guess that's a wild journey to get to this point, but we're geared up. We have this beautiful large shop where we can even work on 10 homes at once. Another partner is called Northern Shield Development Corporation. They do specifically tiny home builds, and now we're all kind of 3 businesses merging together to take on. Even we've got Homes for Heroes project coming up, taking 20 units of affordable housing for homeless veterans, getting set up in Kingston, and those are going to be like tiny homes but without the wheels. And we're just finishing another tiny home with wheels in the community builder shop here just in Barrie. And now we've got 3 new dome customers coming on board, which is what I'm really most passionate about, because as we're shifting gears into this, what I believe is the most truly affordable potential, and these geodesic dome, inspired by Buckminster Fuller. And so our goal is a $30,000 insulated 4-season. Technically, it's like a yurt or a dome, where it's technically like a tent, but it's insulated with 3 inches of foam. You could heat it with a wood stove or an electric heater if you have power there. It could be great for an emergency shelter. But for $30,000, we finally have financing that almost pre-qualifies almost anyone, and we feel like this could be, some folks are even using these domes in their backyard as a Airbnb rentals, like short-term stays, or for another extra bedroom. And we've got really neat ways to work within the square footage of allowance, that up to 160 square feet, which is now the size of your shed you're allowed without a building permit. So we're kind of working in these beautiful little creative ways to create more insulated, heated space.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, you're literally living the life that most people would love to do, of adventure. It's funny, we lose a lot of Ontarians to the West Coast. Most of them don't come back. We're glad you did, and switched up. And it's funny how much that could probably transfer over into, the creativity and imagination into what you're doing now. Now, we hear a lot about tiny homes. Often when I'm out in the community and we're saying we need to prevent and end homelessness, people are like, what about tiny homes? What about tiny homes? For someone who might not understand exactly what a tiny home is, can you just kind of give us some brief strokes on that?
Sure. Well, and I know a lot of people that want to get away from the word tiny home, and because it's a home, it's everything, an entire home in just a smaller package. So it's the branding is pretty pretty set in place there with the tiny home. Everyone knows what that is. And of course, folks generally love the idea of a tiny home on wheels, where you can take it anywhere. And there is a certain neat freedom to that. And the customer we're working with now, they're going to go to the Yukon. So they want to be off grid. They want to be able to generate power off the sun, the wind, and you can even your vehicle can be even a backup generator to charge your batteries, so you don't have to listen to that engine all night. And it's neat systems which is really tricky, putting all the systems of a home in a smaller space. But up to 400 square feet is reasonable on wheels. And we're working on a new project of a smaller home without wheels that will be about 500 square feet off grid. And that one will sit on more of a traditional foundation, or a helical pile, screw pile foundation, or it can sit on concrete blocks. It's a this is the challenge, and this is why it takes a lot of skill to fit all these systems in and finish it to make it look beautiful. So we're finding a lot of the higher end tiny homes, they're still not that affordable to most people, in the
True.
to $200,000 range, depending on the size and the finishes and on grid or off grid. So when the interest rates started jumping up, we lost 3 or 4 customers because they couldn't sell their homes all of a sudden, and they the way the financing on these tiny homes on wheels is working right now. It's all secondary lenders. Not everyone can qualify for it, so it's still a bit out of reach for everyone. So we're always striving and designing and coming up with better ways to simplify, or and in some cases losing the trailer is a big savings. Some of these trailers, you're $20,000 or $25,000 before you even start building the walls. And so you're now with this geodesic dome home idea, where which we have built some prototypes for. And my cabin that's at the family farm is a 20-foot geodesic dome with a wood stove, insulated.
Sorry, let's talk more about these domes. Where does this? Because everyone's heard of tiny homes, or most people have.
Mhm.
And thank you for that description. You're right. Some of them look, just gorgeous. You're right. Like, if we talk about, we don't want to build a tiny home for the sake of building a home. It's the idea that it can be truly affordable for someone, like you said, and it gets tricky. And I love what you're saying about that's the challenge. Get everything in, make it a nice living space, and keep the affordability down. Because if I hear you correctly, because it's fairly new and different, it's not the traditional kind of mortgage or lending, so you have to qualify, which is a challenge as well, and hopefully that will change over time. But let's talk more about these domes. Where the heck did that come? You were doing them for kind of a greenhouse idea for farming, and you thought, what the heck, why can't we use this for everyday living?
That's it. That's what I did with my cabin. Is it was a friend of mine who was one of the carpenters I apprenticed with, Byron Cooper. He figured it out. There was these complex miter cuts, and it's really beautiful how all the hubs fit together when you do it out of wood. Some people are familiar with steel domes, which is with bolts. And so we experimented with these wooden domes. This was 10 years ago, and they were easier to cover as a greenhouse with that sort of plastic tarp. And then we were figuring out how to be able to move them. We were moving them around, setting them up at different trade shows and farmers markets and that. And so it's evolved into a new 2.0 design, which is easier to cover and insulate, and to get your R values up and fit more insulation in there. And it's much easier to waterproof. And so the greenhouse, 20-foot greenhouse that I had started, I covered it with plywood, and it's all triangles. It's all triangles, basically geometric shapes. The peak is a pentagon, basically, that you sheet all of the triangles. And then I did a shingle roof, traditional shingle roof on it, but you almost have to roof it twice. Huge amounts of labor, really tricky, lots of cutting to get all the shingles cut and everything. And it's permanent. Like it's on there for, as long as the shingles last, 30 years, hopefully. But so we've getting into this new design. A fellow from the UK, geodome.uk.com, he came up with this new way of doing it, that it's easier easier to waterproof, easier to cover, and and all the hubs fit beautifully together. So it's led to, and I've from using other flat roof systems of a roof membrane, which is this, it's called TPO from Firestone. The tire company makes this flat roof for an industrial commercial roof. and it actually heat welds together. So now each triangle is one shingle. We've simplified, and it's good for 30 years. Much big labor savings, and we can actually even make the dome movable as a tent. So you can take the whole top off, fold it up. We can even do skylights that are made out of vinyl that heat weld together with the TPO. And so your tent cover is like a yurt would be. Some of those yurts have a skylight at the peak, and we can also do skylights on the triangles at the peak. And but the nice thing is we can insulate 4 or 5 times greater than a traditional yurt, Mongolian yurt, they're known as. And the structure itself of the dome is much stronger. Buckminster Fuller figured this out. And, if you look at the Ontario Place dome, that's a big steel ball. The structure actually gets stronger the larger it gets. It's a wild, interesting bit of math he figured out, and others have been standing on the shoulders of giants and refining that idea. So the reality is, per square foot, it's the least amount of material needed. And so you save a lot per square foot, which of course is the challenge right now for affordable housing. And then of course you run into some other challenges of making your living space circular. But we've got this neat floor plan of it. You can have 2 doors, one in front and one in the back. You can even attach a second dome to the dome. There's a vestibule that connects the two. You can have a greenhouse dome attached to your living space, and when the sun's shining, you can heat your whole home and have all that beautiful vegetable air coming in. The basic room, the flow of the room is you come into the kitchen, you can have a bedroom door, and the back is the bedroom, and you keep walking in a circle, you've got your bathroom. And so you have a little partition. In the 22 feet, there's plenty of space, even for, a queen size bed in the bedroom. And it's possible to have lofts up above. You can raise the dome, so you have a stem wall, vertical wall, and you can have traditional windows in the vertical wall section. Because when you get into the triangle windows, they're pretty custom, pretty expensive, but we've managed to fix panels of polycarbonate or glass that are it's way more cost effective if they're fixed. And so we're just solving lots of these challenges with it, and we're really ramping up with community builders, especially. We've got these new customers that are really believing in this, and part of it's an evolution of an innovative way of building, and they're believing in the concept and putting their money where their mouth is. And now we're in the cycle with all of our building projects, so it's a show and prove type of a thing. But from running the numbers and the estimations and the financing, it looks like for $30,000 we can have a 4-season insulated waterproof for 30 years cover, and wood floor, and of course there's all endless customizations when you get into cabinets and what bathrooms and tile and all this. But I think we have an amazing emergency shelter and an ADA room. We're with one of our partners, Elephant Thoughts, we're talking about in northern communities, First Nations communities, as where there's the housing crisis is everywhere, of course. So a quick solution to adding space, but also we're really big in passing it on. It's really quite a straightforward process for building these things. So we want to empower more people to learn how to build these and carry it forward. So there's no patents, it's open source. This could be a solution that could run away with itself. And when you have more people building more domes, and we could tackle this housing crisis pretty quickly.
Yeah, very cool, very innovative. One of the questions I get asked about quite often, Andrew, is just around the bylaws, what's allowed, because sometimes, if you're in a suburb of Barrie and you just knock down your house and put up 6 domes, the city might have a problem with that. What are the regulations and rules? And I'm pretty sure it would vary from town to city. What have you run into?
Sure. Well, we are able to get specifically the domes. We can also get those engineered, stamped, and approved, and building permits if need be. And then the one neat what some customers are doing at the 15 foot diameter dome, that's just under the 160 square foot allowance for a shed, a building on your property with no building permit. And so at that, it's plenty of room. That's if picture an 8 foot by 20 foot shipping container. It's that same square footage. So, but in the dome, it's really airy. It's much taller. It's the sense of space is really beautiful. The airflow is wonderful, and that can be with exterior doors, secure, lockable. So there are, as with the tiny homes have evolved in the gray zone. So it's a lot of our customers are, they're putting them on family land, friends land, they're on wheels. So there's this other little gray zone component that now the townships are catching up. And as of right now, most properties in Ontario are allowed 3 tiny homes. They're changing the setbacks. So they're, and we're working with a few other great activists in the tiny home community that are helping change the language in the official planning bylaws and all this. That's a whole world that I just have avoided, and I leave it for the experts. I'm big on just building housing. I think we're at this stage, the crisis is severe enough. Let's just house people. And there's NIMBYism everywhere. The solution is simple. The costs are low. This could be it's an emergency as where we are currently. So this could be a project that even community groups, church groups could rally towards. That's the churches are another neat solution. Institutional land, they've changed the zoning around some of this temporary housing. There's more room for leniency in church properties and school properties. So I think we're at this point when there's a lot of activists that are just wanting to house people, and we're going to figure this out. This gray zone right now is in the 160 square foot, with as long as there's no plumbing. And so but there are other great composting toilet options, incinerator toilet options, or I envision if the crisis is this bad, families can share their bathroom, share their kitchen with folks. Have if we can instead of having the visibly homeless all in these tent cities and just to I think we can really, if the community can engulf the folks most in need, we can help spread out and give the supports needed, and not feel like it's just this isolated, intense, condensed problem in these areas. So the solutions are right there. I think we just house people.
I love it, and I love this. And I was looking at some of these domes. Some of them are quite simple. You're saying, hey, for $7,000, kind of put up this dome structure and wrap it, give you a door. And then there's others like the wood inside. It's just gorgeous, right? Again, like any, you can really customize it. But part of the solution to more housing are people adding secondary suites. This is a great secondary suite option, putting it in your yard. I mean, I looked inside, how you talked about it's for a person or a couple, if they were going to spend, that's where they're going to live, and you put that in your backyard. I mean, there's so much potential to this. So let's leap forward 10 years. What does this look like? What would your hopes and dreams be?
Oh, sure. Well, I think we could easily build 1 million homes in 10 years if we put all of our efforts to that. I think we could solve that problem. And there's a lot of technical solutions. And even with the tiny homes in the traditional sort of rectangular shape, SIPs, they're called, structural insulated panels. This is a solution for the framing of the home just in 50% faster. And, these are all things we're looking at for scaling up and putting a big dent in this crisis. So yeah, we're feeling this wave, and, right now, the challenge is the banks and the municipal governments. So we need to, there are some changes happening, but there's, it seems like there are these monopolies set up that are traditional, wanting to go in the traditional subdivision way. It's happening all around Barrie, and they're, so far all the eggs are in that basket. But I've got 5 farmers who would love to have 10 tiny homes each, and they're working at jumping through the hoops, getting the permits to try to do it. It's basically, kind of new modern tiny home villages that are similar to the new age trailer park, so this is an amazing solution, and it can be done fully off grid. If there's no services, it can be, we have all the technical solutions here. It's just really, the frustration is, when I got into building affordable housing 10 years ago, really we're dealing with the exact same problems as then. And this is why we're in a crisis. So we need to do some radical change and take some significantly different steps in order to solve this crisis, because the same factors are holding it back, as I always have.
Listen, right on. If you do what you did, you get what you got. Keep doing the same stuff, you're going to get the same results, right? And you're saying these are not ordinary times, so ordinary solutions need not apply. This is pretty cool. And I think part of the tiny homes piece too is when you're saying, like, if someone was to put up a group of these on a bigger piece of land, is you're actually creating communities, right? So in a tiny home, you're not going to be spending your whole time in there, because it's quite a small space. But if there's a bunch around, you create this community of others that maybe forces you out to interact with others. There might be a communal space. I think that's what they've done with the Tiny Homes Project for veterans in Calgary. So there's lots of variations to this. And I think, again, this is not the only solution, but it definitely is a good one, and it's an affordable one. And I love what you're saying about, it was like shipping container homes for a while. People were saying, this is the way to go. But then we realized you're not really saving dollars. It's not necessarily cheaper. You're saving materials environmentally, or, there's a ton of these containers around. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at affordable, that may not be the way to go, right? But this is, and it sounds like it is. We just need to push through some red tape and change some minds and get people on board. Listen, I think you're going to find it easier and easier. I was at, just before this podcast, I was at a luncheon for the chair of the Region of York, and he was talking about housing was their number one, affordable housing. Housing was one of their number one priorities for the region. They're starting to see it in what is known as a very wealthy community, but of 1.1 million, they're seeing that the amount of affordable housing and the amount of people that experience homelessness is growing. And so they're seeing that as a challenge. They're investing in that, and they're opening up their minds to new solutions, as many are across Canada. It really does take the courage of one community to say, hey, we're going to be the first. Let's change it up and show people and demonstrate it can be done. And it also takes pioneers and leaders like yourself. So thank you, Andrew, for pushing this forward, for being creative, for always thinking of, okay, what can we do to make this not only sustainable, but at the same time, keeping it affordable. So cool. I can't wait to watch how far this goes. And I can't wait to work with you as well, because we've got a lot of affordable housing needs in my area. And we have a program similar to Community Builders. We work with Brandon and the team called Construct, and I can see them getting behind this as well.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. I love your program as well. And yeah, we're all working together at this. And I think there's some of these projects are going to cross over. We are exploring sort of second suites and garden suites. And we're ready for more customers. We've got the team, we've got the consultants doing all the permitting. And if you need to move forward that way, and then we've got the farmers and working and we're hitting it from all angles. We're going to figure this out, and we're trying it all ways, and we're ready to go. And the team is wonderful. with community builders, we're ready to take on more projects. We'd always welcome new customers and to look into this a little bit deeper.
Well, listen, you have a pretty solid beard. I fancy myself having a pretty solid beard, but when it comes to the beard game, Brandon from Community Builders,
Oh,
he is the leader for sure.
Yes.
Listen, if people want to find out more about what you're doing, if they want to purchase one, if they want to make an inquiry, if they want to learn more about Community Builders, where do they go?
Yes, communitybuilders.co, and we're just going through merging the 9milenorth.com website with the Community Builders. And so it's sort of like these are these neat funnels that we've coming from the tiny home world, and Brandon and Community Builders team with the second suites world. But the team at Community Builders is wonderful when it comes to the whole permitting process and the pricing and the estimating, and it's really it's a really well run organization. So we're happy to be a part of it. And we've endless other consultants that are doing site visits. So when you need your site work done and your site plan for all the permits, we have some from looking into in downtown Toronto in backyards for potentially craning over a tiny home into the backyard, and then all the way up towards Tobermory, off grid, out in the woods. So it's everything in between. We've got solutions galore, and we'd love to hear from you and to learn about some more projects.
Well, I think you absolutely will. And I think it's brilliant, you coming together with Community Builders. You've got a crew with experience that could build more and more of these, who's innovative with multiple wins, putting people to work in the trades like Brandon and his team are doing. So congratulations on that. That makes my soul really happy. Thank you so much for your time today, for your passion, and for what you're doing. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, Michael. And when two beards meet, I need to yield to the larger beard.
As I do to Brandon. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Wow. Hey, we often talk about being solution focused on this podcast, and I love Andrew's passion and enthusiasm. Someone who's never lost sight of the goal. Let's keep these affordable. As I said, you hear about for the longest time, people were talking about container homes and then tiny homes was whispered, but that affordability can never be lost. And you want a sustainable, livable space, right? Where people can live in a beautiful little home and have all the amenities that they deserve, right? And he's doing exactly that. Community Builders, a group in Barrie, they're a construction social enterprise. So Brandon and his team there. So when Blue Door started, we were, of course, a charity that said, hey, let's get into the construction end of things, launching people into training and doing this construction company. And we had to bring people with construction expertise on board. Brandon and his team started as, they could build houses. They were a construction company that then said, we want to have social purpose, and it's done great things in the Simcoe area doing that. And that is in northern, kind of northwestern Ontario. So great things happening. So check out Community Builders, communitybuilders.ca, and you can look at 9milehomes.ca, soon to be part of the Community Builders group. If you're interested in that area, I think they could work all over Ontario beyond. A great guest doing spectacular things to tackle this housing crisis. Every week, we'll have different people talking about the solutions, the challenges they face. But until then, we'll see you next time on The Way Home.